Welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I'm your host, David Carr. Well, we got our music getting us all excited out there. Glad to have you here today. I am the founder of Steward Your Business, bringing people together to accomplish great things. And we have another great guest here on the Business Roundtable Podcast, Sara Gayle. I'm super excited to have Sara because you're going to get to know a little bit more about her. She is the founder of Everkind Strategies, also a fellow giant guide as I am. And she really helps mission-driven leaders in teams grow with clarity, connection, and kindness, which is very important. And particularly, I wanted to have Sara on here because of her work that she's been doing with neurodivergent leaders, those that are dealing with ADHD, like me, and even how AI can help you in that journey. So before we get into that, I just want to say thank you, Sara, for being here as a guest. It's a real pleasure. I consider you a friend and a colleague, and just really grateful to have you here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. It's exciting.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Sara. I know you just launched your own podcast recently, so we're going to put the show notes so you guys can check that out as well. And Sara and I are connected on LinkedIn and other things. But Sara, I'd love before we get kind of into the meat of the subject today, get into your background, because I think it's really important about where your journey was and how you've come to this place of really, the founder of Everkind Strategies and why you do what you do today. And Seth, if you could, in my mind, just take it a few minutes to walk our listeners through your personal journey.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you for, just having the opportunity to kind of share your roadmap along the way is always fun, because someone might be like, oh my gosh, me too. Yeah. So let's just go back to kind of college, right? So in college, I started with, I was a NCAA athlete. I was blessed enough to play golf in college at the collegiate level. I came from a small school and had straight A's. And then college happened with all of the things to potentially distract someone, right?
Yes.
And it was a situation that kind of like all of these things hit at once. So that's when I really started paying attention to like, is it me or is something wrong with the system? Like I got into my math classes. Everything else was fine. Got into my math classes. And because of the sport that I played, golf, we were absent from class often. And so things started stacking up for me. And I failed my college calc course, the first failure ever. I've never failed a class before. And then I was like, nope, that was my bad. Let me take it again with the same professor, because like, we can do this. I was going to fail that semester as well. So 2 semesters in a row fail. I withdrew that time, took a 3rd semester in a row because I'm determined and disciplined and I can do this, right? And so this will all come into play with how neurodivergent folks work, right? So I was determined to prove that I could beat this math class. Well, I failed it again. And then I was taken to the ADHD testing lab by my parents because they're like, we can't pay for this a 4th semester in a row. And I was told that I did not have ADHD. I was told that, she's very intelligent, but she's just bored. In hindsight, that's exactly what ADHD is. Like your brain is going everywhere all the time because you have so many thoughts happening simultaneously. And if you're in a subject, because ADHDers, neurodivergent folks, we are short on dopamine. So we like things that are exciting, that are new. And I did not find math that interesting. And so it didn't give my brain the dopamine hit that I needed. And so what I ended up doing is I switched to a different professor. I was able to take notes and I passed with a B. The exact same subject matter, the exact same, it's math. It didn't change between professors. The approach did, the system did. And so it took me being late diagnosed. I just turned 37 last week. And so it took me, I've been diagnosed for 2 years. So all that time in between was me trying to figure out what is wrong. Like, why am I not getting it? Or why this makes so much sense to me? why are my coworkers finding it hard to comprehend what I'm saying here?
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on it, girl, it's been there the whole time, like and so I have experience in risk management because I have
Mm.
very high justice. I
Mm.
towards justice and making sure people are protected and taken care of. And then I was in event management in government. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was a really great opportunity to make sure that I could build out infrastructure that brought
Okay. Yep.
to communities. I got to work with the same people that put on the Super Bowl halftime show and the Rose Bowl parade and the Olympics. I mean,
Mm.
like, such an incredible time. And again, all of the things to consider in festival and event management was perfect for a neurodivergent brain. And then
Yes.
COVID hit, right? So
Yep.
COVID hit, people weren't having parties
Everything was
outside.
shut down. Yep.
Everything shut down. I shifted into policy work, communications. I did work with the White House and Congress. That was an incredible opportunity to
Yeah.
work on behalf of American Indians and Alaska Natives. And so through all of that, I was always working hard, always working long hours. And then my husband and I decided, let's start our family. It's time.
Yeah.
And the second I realized I was responsible for another human being, I was like, I need to do my own thing. And
Mm.
so I took all of that experience, the good, the bad, the ugly of working within corporate systems, government systems,
Yep.
independent contractor systems, corporate, and thought, how can I help teams grow, do right by people
Yep.
in a way that both supports profitability
Mm-hmm.
and relational intelligence. So
Yeah.
that is the core of Everkind Strategies, is building systems that help lead to what we want to reach in the
Yeah.
end, which is, the goals.
Yes, absolutely. Well, there's so much there. I'm excited to unpack this with you, Sara, today. It's interesting you said this event stuff because you just triggered me. For those that don't know, I ran a DJ business for many years, and I love that. So I could totally understand from coming from somebody that is self-diagnosed ADHD, at least at some level, where and that and the way our brains work, like you said, that dopamine, we're trying to make up for that dopamine and how where people are attracted to certain things and those dynamics. So it makes a lot of sense as you were sharing that, Sara. But I'm really encouraged by you are taking all these different experiences now and putting them in this approach and making it your own and finding and helping people where they're at. And I really appreciate that. That's why I love having you on the podcast, because for those that are listening, there's a whole great community of giant guys. Many of us are always looking and collaborating with each other and like, how do we help clients? How do we reach more people? And to me, Sara is one of those people that I say, okay, I align with her. I see where she's coming from. And by the way, go again, check her out, our podcast, connect with her on LinkedIn, because you get some great posts there. And is really out there for helping people win, helping people feel successful in life. And I feel like we need that more than ever, Sara. And so I would ask you the question here, like, so you didn't know you had ADHD. Obviously your parents said, hey, come take this. I think there's a lot of people that don't know how to put the words on it. Now, other people like to throw labels around and they may or may not be accurate, but what would you say that we can start to pick out, like maybe trend? And you mentioned some of them, but I want people to listen to, they can start to like say, is this something I'm struggling with? Like you said, you went through classes, you're like, I'm going to make through it, and it didn't work. Like, and I think people keep trying the same things, and they're not getting the results, right? Well, that's the definition of insanity, right? We just keep doing the same thing over and over, and it doesn't get us where, but we feel like, well, I don't know what else to do. So could you walk us through a little bit of like, what do you see, like how to help people start to look for these signs?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so much of it came from, I started with healing myself. I went through some significant trauma in my late 20s, and I was determined to design the kind of life that I wanted and not just step into one that I thought was recommended, So
Yep.
it's not, our lives aren't a perfect chart and graph. And up until that point, I had checked all the boxes and progressed, succeeded at each one, but as I looked back and that this event kind of made my world implode, I thought, okay, who am I? Where
Mm-hmm.
do I want to go? What kind of life do I want to experience for myself? And how
Yeah.
do I want to interact with the people around me that might be going through some really, really hard stuff? And
Mm-hmm.
through that journey, I'm a huge believer in neuroscience. If the pros have already done the work and research for you, connect
Yes.
with them and believe them if enough of them say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so always do your research, always make sure it's a credible source. But for me, I did connect with a good counselor, a good therapist, and
Mm-hmm.
I requested neurologically based, science-based counseling,
Mm-hmm.
because again, intellectually, I can figure stuff out by myself. I can figure out why I'm feeling cruddy one day, and I can find motivation to do the next thing. But what I need is to get beyond that kind of intellectual wall that we can build sometimes. And it
Yes.
took me connecting emotionally to
Mm-hmm.
even get to the point of maybe others don't experience the world the same way I do. Um, and a lot of that, I'm really grateful that I was blessed and not marginalized along the way as a
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergent person, because that happens
Mm-hmm.
often.
Yes.
Um, but I think starting with healing, starting with really reflecting on what is going to make me whole as a person is kind of the
Mm-hmm.
first step. And in that, I
Mm-hmm.
discovered that I was neurodivergent,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, it's like I wasn't seeking a diagnosis. I wasn't trying to answer the question of like, what's wrong with me? Because I'm a guardian pioneer. And for those of
Mm.
you who are familiar with giant language, confidence is not an issue most of the time for us. So my issue was always with these systems are broken. I mean, since middle school, I have pointed to broken systems.
Mm-hmm.
And through the lens of a neurodivergent person, that makes total sense that I would
Yes.
find things that are broken and want to fix them.
Yes.
So I think starting with what is going to make you whole, what's going to bring you the most joy, um, what purpose is a big word, and purpose can change. But I think finding your values, start there. And then if things are hindering you to reach your values,
Mm-hmm.
then start looking clinically, then start looking in a way that's like, could it be this? Now, ADHDers specifically, if you see yourself being late for things constantly and you don't, I swear it was 15 till 2 minutes ago. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you're late.
Mm-hmm.
If that's I think looking for patterns,
Yes.
things that have always been present,
Yeah.
because neurodivergence is often DNA based,
Mm-hmm.
it's genetic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is some talk that neurodivergence can be brought on by traumatic events because it can rewire your brains in a
Okay.
way that
Mm-hmm.
causes you to cope similarly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you look at things like sensory issues,
Mm-hmm.
that's something. If you are really sensitive to sound,
Mm-hmm.
or if you have to squint to focus on your work, if there's a conversation happening behind you, you
Yeah.
might be neurodivergent.
Uh-huh.
If you find yourself being able to succeed in completing your tasks with music playing, either in the room or in your headphones, you could have ADHD because
Mm-hmm.
those things, it occupies a part of your brain to let a passive part to let you focus. It kind of
Mm-hmm.
quiets the rest of your brain to let you focus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those were kind of the things that stood out for me as I started recognizing these patterns
Yeah.
is I got so much more done if no one talked to me. Like, and that brings up a good point. Like talking about, there's a lot of neurotypical folks that don't understand the intensity of what neurodivergent people experience. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, what we need as neurodivergent people is the same thing that neurotypical people need. It's a human need of
Yeah.
we need rest, we
Mm-hmm.
need calm environments to get things done and be productive. We need, you know, hydration,
Mhm.
good food, like all of these things, those are human things.
Yep.
But neurodivergent people experience things, disruption, frustration more intensely.
Hmm.
And so our recovery time from experiencing those really intense emotions, which is why healing and focusing on the
Yes.
emotion, not the intellect, helped
Yep.
me, really gave me permission to recover a little bit longer and
Mhm.
not view it as laziness or get frustrated at myself for it. So I think those were kind of my starting points.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So
great. Now I got some follow-up questions for you here, Sara. So for those of you that haven't done the 5 voices assessment, I'll put a link in the chat here and you can check it out. So Sara, Guardian, a Pioneer, and then I'm a Connector Creative Pioneer. So with the Nurture and the Guardian being the last. But I wanted the listeners to hear this because the work that Sara has done on herself, I love this because I'm a Connector, which is very different than a Guardian and Pioneer. As you guys, even if you don't know, that they're very different. But here's what I want to say: Sara uses her Guardian voice in a way like preparing for this podcast, for example. Sara, you were great. You're being proactive. You gave me information. You sent me stuff ahead of time, which is very Guardian based, and I appreciate that. But you did it in a very kind way, in a way that is not like you need to have this information, or you know what I mean. There's a level of understanding and appreciation, which I think it comes with the work you're doing. That's why I want the listeners to hear. You've been doing this work on yourself, and it shows up in the way that you treat other people, the way you relate to other folks. And I think that's very, very powerful. And I just want to encourage people as you're listening to Sara, she's lived this out. And I've observed it in her personally of how she's doing this and how much it can be changed, even if it's late diagnosed ADHD or wherever you're at in this place, right, Sara?
right.
You can start to improve your life. And I would say, as you learn this, probably, yes, I would say there's a higher recovery, but over time, does it get easier? I mean, in the sense of understanding at least what's going on, right? So you're not like feeling like victim of circumstance, you know?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, recognizing reality is going to
Mhm.
help you move through it faster
Mhm.
than denying the fact that it's happening at all and
Mhm.
continuing to be frustrated. Like,
Right.
it's like anything. Like if you sprain your ankle and you just keep walking on it, it's not going to get better. But if
Mhm.
like, oh, I have busted my ankle, let me elevate this thing and put some ice on it, you
Right.
can get back to whatever you were doing a little bit quicker than being in
Mhm.
denial and just continuing to harm yourself. So that's why, again, why kindness, both to yourself and those around you, is such a huge priority for me. And I want to
Mhm.
clarify, kindness is not niceness.
Yes.
Kindness is honest. Kindness can bring challenge, but you're
Mhm.
always looking for the greater good of everyone involved. So
I love that. No, I love that. And as a recovering nice guy, especially being a connector, as Sara knows, connectors are very big on being people pleasing and very high support, low challenge, to our own detriment many times. Where I would say, Sara, you're naturally challenging, like you said, you earlier asking all the questions, and then maybe I'll throw some support your way in the back end. But but that is really important to understand. One of the questions I want to have, Sara, and for those of you that haven't done the 5 voices, it may be a little bit of I want you to dig into that, but listen in. But Sara, when you look at neurodivergence, just does that show up? Just so for the listeners, does that show up in any one voice, or is it spread across the spectrum of all the different voices? What does that look like? I'm just curious in your experience.
yeah, it's gonna come out all kinds of ways
Mm-hmm.
because a good friend of mine said if you have met one neurodivergent person, you've
Mm-hmm.
met one neurodivergent person. Because the terminology of it being a spectrum is so real, and like
Mm-hmm.
the things that we focus on and the things that catch our interest and the things that affect us negatively and positively, it comes out all kinds of ways. Now, I do have a theory
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of guardians may be neurodivergent
Mm-hmm.
because we like a lot of structure,
Yes.
and that makes us feel peace on the inside. We
Mm-hmm.
are we're skewed towards justice and truth,
Mm-hmm.
and so there are some but it's just a theory. Don't quote me on it. But yeah, I mean, I've seen all kinds, and the thing is too, with any type of personality assessment, I always like to stress like it's a starting point. It is
Mhm.
not a box to put you in.
Yes.
It's somewhere where you can begin the journey of learning who you are, what matters most to you, what may trigger you into your
Mhm.
fight, flight, fawn, freeze,
Mhm.
whatever is going on. And then you can grow from that. So again, I've had people that their voice orders have shifted with their priorities.
Mm.
Major events have changed voice orders. But what matters most is that your values are your
Mm.
anchor
Yes.
and your behavior is kind of the buoy at the top that shifts
No,
with
that's
your
a great way of
environment.
saying it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I've seen.
You said, and I believe you that you said that this neurodivergent, this ADHD, it's kind of baked into our DNA, if you will. It's like I'm a man, you're a woman. That doesn't change in the sense of how we're biologically created. But what I hear you saying is we can adjust our behavior, maybe for the good, maybe for the bad, depending on the circumstances, right? Of trying to be more like this. Now, if it's truly, like you said, in alignment with our values, that's going to be, will be in alignment and congruent. But if we're
Mm.
not, speak a little bit to that of the people that aren't haven't really, they can't really tell you totally their values, or if they don't, if maybe they kind of identify their values, Sarah, but they don't actually value their values. They don't value who they are. So they've said, this I am, but I don't think it's worthy. I don't think it is. So talk a little bit about that journey of getting in alignment.
Oh, well, negative self-talk is the first way to really tick me off because because we are all incredible masterpieces. Like we are so
Mm.
complex. No matter what you think you've accomplished, you've probably
Mhm.
accomplished more. No matter what impact you think you've had, you've probably had a bigger one.
Mm.
So much of the good you put out into the world never comes back to you in a way that's tangible.
Mm.
So you have to talk about yourself well and positively, even if you don't really believe it at first, because you can hear you.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
things you say to yourself about yourself. And that's step one, is making sure that you know how incredibly important you are, period.
Mm. Mm.
The value you bring is not in what you produce, it's in who you are
Mm.
inherently,
Mhm.
the experiences you have, things like that. So, I mean, again, that immediately makes me angry if people hate on themselves because
Mhm. Mhm.
what are you talking about? You're
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
amazing. So, what was the question again?
Yeah. Yeah. So that the negative self-talk is, so that's one. Number one, I think you said, okay, value who you are, because then you can express that. And one of the things I like in Giant, when the five voice assessment, there's a liberation statement of like, who am I? And you describe this about who I am to the world. Because what I find is, if you don't dig down and get that gold and understand what you're saying, Sarah, it's very
Mhm.
hard then to work with other people, because you don't even value who you are. So why would you value other people? And that at least that's been my journey, and like, and I helping, you're trying to unlock people. We're both in this journey of like
Mhm.
getting people in that place. And I'm particularly for those of the ADHDers that get distracted, are like, oh, I guess I should be like this person. I'm like, well, maybe, but maybe not. And you
Yeah.
haven't done the work on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. And your environment as a neurodivergent person, you are so incredibly sensitive. You
Mm.
and not like, oh, you're sensitive, like
No.
in a bad way. It's a gift how perceptive neurodivergent people are,
Hmm.
whether you are diagnosed or not. If you are someone who can feel the weight of someone else's mood when they walk in, if you can read the person in front of you, if you can notice patterns of your coworkers or your family, you are going to absorb a lot of that. And
Hmm.
so I think being really, really intentional about the environments you place yourself in, if they
Hmm.
aren't serving you, change them. If they
Mm.
aren't going to change, find somewhere else to grow. And
Yeah.
so burnout, because the culture often, especially in the United States, is a go, go, go fast. We don't
Hmm.
take breaks. We work through lunch. If you
Yep.
got surgery scheduled at 10 a.m., you better call me at 2. And so we experience that. And that's just normal for Americans to deal with those types of things. And I'm seeing so much of how other people live now that I'm in Spain.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we could talk about that all day.
That'd be another episode. Come back.
Another episode.
Yeah.
Yes. But if you are experiencing burnout, if you kind of get home and you just throw all your stuff on the floor and you just kind of sit like a zombie, or you scroll or you watch TV, and you cannot find motivation to find joy or hobbies, it's not your fault. It's exhausting. And especially for a neurodivergent person, again, if the environment that you are in is a draining one, you need to have that self-awareness of, I actually want to do something else. I want to have more fun. I want to have my days end at 5:00 and take my kiddo to the park. And again, it all comes back to values. What matters to you? And your life is worth it. It's short, it's beautiful, it's messy, but it's yours, and you can design it however you want to.
Yes. And that's why, having you, Sara, on the podcast is somebody like, you can take an assessment, like you can do some of these things in the videos there, and they're great resources. And then you have somebody come alongside you, like Sara, that's been there, done that, and is helping you and walking alongside you. In Giant, we like to say the word Sherpa, like somebody going ahead that's done this before. As you were saying that, Sara, one of the other assessments that came to mind is the Peace Index assessment, where it talks about your purpose, your place, right? I was just talking to another colleague about that, like assessing you at a very high level, just kind of getting you some awareness. Because I think, honestly, if you're talking about burnout, Sara, I think that people don't even realize and how much of a deficit they really are, in my experience. I think that you're just, they feel like, I guess this is kind of the new normal, and they don't even realize, like, I'm definitely very low overall, and we don't even know what it's like to feel. So you're going into another country, you're seeing things differently. I know when I've gone from an organization where it was not that healthy into another one, I'm like, is this normal? Is this like actually how people treat each other? And I'm like, this is like a breath of fresh air, but I didn't even know it was there. I was just completely oblivious to it,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's something too, that like, normal is busted. Normal is not working. Like if you look at the statistics, if you look at some of the numbers of happiness and job satisfaction and family quality time and, like I said, hobbies, like you don't realize it because, oh, well, that person's experiencing it too. Like you have got to get to a point where you say, okay, but I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right.
And you're going to have to buck up against some systems that are broken, some systems that are holding you there. And a lot of the time it's in your head, unfortunately. Those things that are holding you back are in your head. So, I mean, I would speak so much to community, find like-minded people, because what I did so much in the first half of my career was I pulled from a part of myself that I thought I wanted to achieve that goal, but it got me in rooms with people that just got on my nerves. I'm like, you are not nice. You have a lot of money, but I don't like being around you. Like, and I kept finding myself being rewarded and advancing in that environment. But I got to a point where I was getting migraines constantly. I was staying 14-hour days. I was skipping lunch. And in hindsight, I was like, never again. I made a promise to myself 5 years ago that I will never work through lunch again. And I have kept that promise to myself for 5 years, because our bodies only last so long, you guys. And if you just dig them into the ground faster than they need to, and you don't want to get to the point where your body starts telling you to stop, because it's a hard time to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think we were talking, I like to use the car analogy. You don't have to change the oil, every day, but you do need to change it regularly. You need to check the tires. You need to do the maintenance. If you don't do the maintenance, the car will not last that long, and you'll have a serious likely breakdown and get stuck possibly somewhere you don't want to be stuck.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. The other thing you were saying, Sara, gosh, there's so many good nuggets here. You guys, hope you're listening in. And again, make sure you guys connect with Sara on LinkedIn. We'll put all this in the show notes, websites and all that stuff to follow up on. Man, Sara, so many great points here. You mentioned, I want to get a little bit of time into systems and AI particularly, because I know that's another element that you do. And like, how can those, as you're building these things, how can that help support leadership focus and clarity? What's exciting you about this, as things are evolving technology?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I do have a lot of feelings because, hello, strong sense of justice, environmental things, how it's affecting communities. There's
Yep.
always those pieces to consider when making progress, right? And so we have to be intentional about being responsible with how we use new things.
Sure. Absolutely.
Anything. And so that being said, I'm also an early adopter of technology. I have always been the first one. I was the first one of my friends with an iPod. I was the first one with this and that. I just have always been a fan of new tech. And so AI is no different. I have been chatting with ChatGPT since its inception. And so realizing how to talk to it took some time.
Yep.
But in the past year, with the way it's advanced, realizing how it can help me, specifically as an entrepreneur and as an ADHDer, because it's filling in gaps that I didn't even realize I had. It's like I was aware that I wasn't progressing in these certain areas, but they were always back burner stuff. So for example, even just daily tasks of like staying on track, like when I have an idea, because we have simultaneous ideas all the time. What I have done recently is I have asked my AI to, hey, can you log all of these things for me and send me a weekly summary of all the ideas I had and help me prioritize my next week? That sounds like, okay, great. They're your assistant or whatever. What I'm telling you is neurodivergent people map time differently, like I mentioned earlier. And part of that is when I am engaging with somebody, when I am doing the work, I am not anywhere else. I am present and I'm making note of what's happening. And so after the fact, I often say like, I blacked out that whole time. I probably won't remember most of this podcast. So it's a good thing that we have it recorded because that is how the neurodivergent brain works. Like you're in it and then it doesn't find that information useful and it kind of like offboards it. Well, with AI, I'm able to say, hey, I'm going into a podcast with David and we're going to talk about this stuff. Can you ask me, send me a reminder in an hour and ask me to debrief what David and I just talked about and see how I can integrate that into the next steps of Everkind Strategies.
Yes.
And it will do that. And it will push me a notification while it's fresh. So that's just one example of how both in entrepreneurship and with ADHD that it's just helping me.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I think coming along people, Sara, that you're working with, folks that are in this place and like helping them set it up. Like you've been there, you've done that. And like, okay, let's, like you said, working with Sara or working with somebody like me, well, we're going to help you go further and faster together than you just trying to do it on your own and kind of like poking at it. It's like, and at the end of the day, I think what you're seeing, and Sara particularly, because you've done this, Sara, and I love the hearing, like the making sure that you got your lunches the last 5 years, amazing. Like you're doing these things, and you're getting the wins, and you're becoming really the person that you want to be. That you're living your values, and I think that is beautiful because I feel like there's a lot of people that look back in their life and are like, yeah, didn't mean a lot to me. I missed out, and we have such a short time. To have impact and influence with those, our spouses, our children, our coworkers, and we want to live this life out and be our truest, our best self, if you will. And I think, Sara, the work you're doing is fantastic. And I think hopefully as you guys are listening into this, I want you to encourage you to connect with Sara or talk with both of us. We work collaboratively together to help clients in this way. And it's nice to be having people across the world now that you're in Spain in a whole nother time zone, and reaching folks. But here you are on the podcast. As we're getting to the end of the podcast, and I'm going to have you come back, Sara, because you brought up some other good points we just couldn't get to today. If somebody's listening to this, I asked you two questions. If they're ADHD, if they know that they're ADHD or they're neurodivergent, I want to kind of ask you two things. Well, the first question would be, I'll start with the first question. I'm going to follow-up question. But for those folks that they're listening in, what would you say was one thing that they can do after listening to this podcast? Like you said, they don't want to go into the black hole, but they could do something positive to keep the momentum going.
Find a community that tells you you're just fine.
Yeah.
that you are. My podcast is called Totally Normal. And that's why, like, hey, it's totally normal that after this thing you felt like this, because we know you've got ADHD, you're neurodivergent, we get it. You need to be reminded that you aren't alone. And so find community, message me, DM me, email me.
Yes.
I can either be that for you or connect you to some great opportunities to get with folks that tell you you're not crazy for that, actually. And just having people on your side can get you places further than any level of research, job experience, anything. Just letting you know you're not alone.
No, and I agree. And I was just having a group coaching program this morning, Sara, that I was on, and that was basically it. You and I are called to create that space, and it's not for everybody, but for the people that get it and they're like, I need this, and it's valuable. I will tell you, it's 100% what Sara is saying. Get in the community, invest in yourself. That was one thing I recognized as a coach myself, stepping into the space. I was like, okay, I recognize I'm a vector for you and Sara. So is Sara, to help get better, to get healed. We're just raising our hands saying, hey, we want to help you along the journey. And so you have an advocate here in Sara and myself. And I highly encourage you to reach out to Sara, and it would be fantastic to follow up. The follow-up question I have for you, though, Sara, is for the other people, those that are not the neurodivergent, those that are not ADHD. They're listening like, I'm not that person. But what can they do to be supportive of those folks? What can they do to be more aware and have a better influence and impact in getting actually engagement for those folks, creating an environment like you were talking earlier? What can those folks do?
It's a 3-step process.
Okay.
The first step is ask, how can I help you achieve your goals? How can I help? So pay attention.
Yeah.
The next thing is listen to them the whole time, even if it's foreign to you, because neurodivergent brains do not make sense to a neurotypical brain. It is a whole other model, and it comes in versions 1 through infinity. Okay. And lastly, believe them. Believe what they're saying. Believe that, are they just trying to get special treatment? Are they just trying to have this thing that makes them different than the rest of the group? They're already different, y'all. They want to belong. They want to be a part of a successful team and a group of people going in the same direction and do it well.
Yeah, I love that, Sara. Thank you so much for just sharing with our audience. Again, I encourage you guys to leave comments here on the wherever you're listening to us, whether it's YouTube or Spotify, Amazon, whatever the platform it is. We love, of course, getting your 5-star reviews. That's always helpful, getting more folks reaching these podcasts. You could, of course, look in the show notes. We'll have links to both Sara and I, so you guys can follow up with us. We would love to hear from you. Sara, it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We invite you to come back week after week, subscribe, follow along. And until next time, be well, take good care of yourself. Thanks for listening, everybody.